tournament game, but they're not going to get there by doing the same things they've always done. It is on this team to step up and change that narrative. It won't change on its own. Teams won't lay over for you, and that's the mindset shift we haven't consistently seen yet.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Go hog wild, pit barbecue.
It's $5.99 barbecue time. Hurry to Hog Wild for a complete barbecue meal that's only $5.99. Get a one-meat sandwich loaded with our award-winning barbecue, plus your choice of a classic side and drink for just $5.99. Upgrade your sandwich to beef brisket for just $1 more. Join us for lunch or dinner in Lincoln at 3210 Cornhusker Highway. Order online at gohogwild.com.
But don't be late, we close at 8.
Rain, snow, or shine, John Henry's is here to keep your home's plumbing systems working properly no matter what kind of weather Nebraska throws at us. From unclogging toilets and drains to installing new water heaters and water treatment systems, John Henry's is your plumbing expert in the Lincoln and Omaha communities. Visit us at calljh.com or call
John Henry's.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air,
and Electrical.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bakoven.
Welcome into Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. I am Jake Bakoven, your host of our WWE Week in Review, joined by Nuclear Heat contributor Augie Pena. Augie, how's it going tonight?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Can't complain. You know, it's a beautiful night here. So
Yeah, brand new to Ticket Weeknights. We just had a new show with Nori Newelli. So things are just going well here at 93.7 The Ticket, and we get a chance to talk some WWE on live radio, so we can never complain about that. If you haven't heard of us yet on Nuclear Heat, again, WWE Week in Review show. It's a good time to get in if you are not in on wrestling as we lead up to WrestleMania. Very, very hot WrestleMania. They always say it's the biggest one ever. This one feels like it's got a chance to be very good with the two nights and the second night that they are basically setting up with the first, as we learned this week. So we'll kind of get into that. If you're not a wrestling fan, you're not going to enjoy this too much because that's all we're talking about. And mostly the in the ring type of stuff, fantasy booking, all that sort of thing. So I'd like to invite you to join us. If you'd like to, you can comment on some of our ideas or some of what you think WWE is doing well, booking well. Again, we understand, we look for, this is kind of a peek behind the curtain type of show. We understand all this is predetermined, but it's all fun. And a lot of it too is interesting to me over the years, just looking at injuries and outside life circumstances that change some of what they do and how they book these professional wrestlers, especially leading into WrestleMania, is interesting. We've got certain guys that are still out there, like a Randy Orton that could draw big. That you wonder what are they going to do with him. Gunther probably should have a better setup than what they've got for him. There is an idea out there that maybe Brock Lesnar would be the big challenger at WrestleMania. Now, because of some outside the ring circumstances, that's not necessarily the case. So that's the kind of thing that's kind of fun and moves a lot in the WWE. And of course, the biggest thing is, unless you're living under A Rock, The Rock is back in professional wrestling, member of the board of the TKO. So it looks like he'll be around for a while. The question is, are they going to strap a belt to him? Is he going to be the new authority kind of figure like Triple H has been in the past? Very interesting times indeed. Let's start off with our SmackDown review. We know Raw was last night. We kind of like to go in the middle of the week to kind of get you ready for the next SmackDown and give you a reminder as you get a breather from professional wrestling, unless you're an NXT fan or AEW fan. We don't talk so much about those shows, although it is worth mentioning at the top here, Sting retiring in an AEW ring. Do you think, a lot of these wrestlers have their last wrestling match over and over again, so you never know if it's official, but he got his sons involved. And so ultimately the other thing that was notable about that is WWE acknowledged it last night on WWE Raw. What do you kind of think of that? That seems like there's been a few different things happening that we'll talk about over the course of this show that's different with this WWE post Vince McMahon.
Yeah, good for Sting, great career, most of it outside of the WWE, WCW, all that stuff. So, that's really good for him. And, I am impressed with what the WWE did for him because, his what he did there was only 3-4 years. Wasn't long, but I mean, you remember his debut in the WWE, he came Survivor Series when it was Authority versus John Cena. He came in and he saved it. Dolph Ziggler, all that stuff. So it was fun. It was a good thing to see. Like Jake said, we don't really watch AEW and all that stuff, but I did tune in to kind of see, what they would do for Sting and all that. And it was good for him.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You mentioned his time there in WWE. It wasn't when it was supposed to be, right? He was supposed to come over when WCW and WWF were crossing over. We never got that. So you never ended up getting Sting versus Undertaker, which is a dream match I don't think we'll ever see. They brought him back instead to take on Triple H. I kind of like that because it was the old WCW versus WWF angle. Of course, if you follow Triple H throughout his career, he wins these things. He did again at that WrestleMania against Sting. They brought out the old NWO. They brought out all of Sting's buddies. So I mean, it was a great moment in WrestleMania history, and just some of those returns, they had him under what Rollins at the time was with the Authority. He thought was a statue. I mean, so he just made all those surprise returns, and he's been incredible. What they were able to do to him. Like I said, never did get the Undertaker Sting match, and for what he's done at AEW, it's kind of interesting because he's not your typical 60-year-old wrestler. He's actually out there taking a lot of bumps, and so we'll see. I'm always kind of thinking, well, maybe it won't be the end, and we might see him in the WWE at least one time again. But for now, Sting is retired. Again, let's jump into SmackDown as we review both shows. We'll start with SmackDown. The Rock and the Bloodline kicked off the show, and this was a great promo, very long one. I mean, the first segment was just the Bloodline was just Roman Reigns, in fact, trying to get the crowd to react even hotter, to his name and acknowledge him and all that. But so this was a long promo, but that's what The Rock's all about. He even had to put out a 21-minute video outside of this promo to get more of his points across. But basically, he shut down the invitation from Cody Rhodes to go one-on-one. He set up instead a match for The Rock and Reigns against Rhodes and Seth Rollins in the main event of night one of WrestleMania, a challenge with two enormous stipulations going in it. A winner for the American Nightmare. Basically that the Bloodline would either be involved or not. The stipulation is if the American Nightmare and Seth Rollins win, the Bloodline basically barred from ringside for the championship match between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. If The Rock and Roman Reigns wins, then it's a Bloodline. I mean, he basically said he's going to go in there and hit him with a chair. So the Bloodline will be involved. This looks like the way it's headed. We'll get to it on Raw as well. Rhodes and Rollins' response. But what do you think about this? This is their way of using The Rock after originally having him planned and penciled in. It looked like to face Roman Reigns. Instead, now pivoting to this matchup, which basically kind of a Final Four, if you can think of it that way, that will affect the main event of Sunday night.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty good idea because we talked about it last week. For those that caught our show, we didn't really know how the challenge from Cody to The Rock would go. When they would do it because it doesn't fit in the time frame for WrestleMania. And I think I'm a huge Rock fan. If I'm very open about that, huge on The Rock, but I don't know how he would do in a one-on-one match. So this, being a tag team, it could be good there. And especially, if they do lose somehow, which I'm kind of banking they might lose on that one. It could be good because it will still save, The Rock, I think, from possibly taking that pin. But I think it's all interesting, because I'm a huge Rock fan, but I kind of want to see Roman and The Rock lose because I do want to see it be like a one-on-one thing. But to me, I think the WWE is going to go, Rock Roman there.
Yeah.
Win.
Make Cody overcome the odds even more.
Yeah, because they have to, because he's already not being pushed down our throats,
Right,
enough
yeah,
right now. So you got to do it more. Got to give him more of that. But it could make that even more special if he's able to finish his story there. So I think it's a pretty good idea. I don't know about you, but it's making The Rock to me kind of look a little weak. He's not taking the one-on-one challenge. He's aligning himself with the bloodline. He's essentially acknowledging Roman Reigns, all that stuff there. So to me, as a big Rock fan, it's kind of hurting to see him like this. It's good to see him here, but it's different, because he's that heel Rock, but he's falling in line with the bloodline and all that stuff. So it is what it is, but it's fun to see. It is still fun to see. It's a great storyline right now. And I'm really excited for WrestleMania to come around.
Yeah, I mean, it gives them a lot of outs. I mean, they got a lot they can do both within night one, and then if they want The Rock, or The Rock is here to stay for 3 or 4 matches a year, there's a lot of creative things they can kind of lean in toward for the next year of booking. So there's just a lot that can be done here. Interestingly enough, too, the night one main event, well, you're going to have to also think from both sides about a turn on the on one or the other, and they kind of teased that as well, as The Rock was going to do one of his catchphrases. The tribal chief stopped him and made him acknowledge Roman Reigns. He did so, and so kind of interesting. I don't, kind of weird too. I mean, I don't know. There feels like there should be respect there. Maybe he's thinking, he didn't necessarily like the way that The Rock put those stipulations on, or whatever the case may be. But bold, kind of younger guy trying to take the big seat. He says he's the head of the table. So very much within the storyline, and very much a tense moment there as we opened up SmackDown. We followed up with a match from Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. Very quick match. And Tiffany Stratton ultimately getting the win. It is Tiffy time on SmackDown. I absolutely love Tiffany Stratton from the small amount that I've known of her, right? I kind of followed the Becky stuff when she went back to NXT. But for the most part, did not know much of Tiffany Stratton coming out of NXT. She's just kind of the complete package right now. She's got the look, she's got the athleticism. Her act is kind of over the, pointing to the wrist for saying it's her time. She's just got a lot of stuff going for her. And so a very interesting match. Neither, I love when WWE puts two pieces together that you kind of think, well, both of them kind of need this win. And that was the case. The fact they went with Tiffany Stratton over Naomi gets you excited about Tiffany, but also wondering about Naomi. She seems rather directionless upon her return.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go with it is Naomi. She had this big return, brought her back, huge, Royal Rumble, all that stuff. And essentially, it was a good match. It was a really good match. And for us, how short it was. And I heard it's because of, the bloodline segment going over so long and all that. But just really confusing, because I know you're trying to, build Tiffany Stratton and all that stuff, but you're going to do it again. I know Naomi's a former champ, so it's giving her some credibility. But at the same time, I think this is hurting Naomi. Like there's no direction for her, as you were saying. WrestleMania, she'll, unfortunately, unless they stick her somewhere and, it's going to feel very unnatural. She's going to be probably left off the card or in one of those pre-shows, like a battle royale or something. And it makes you kind of feel bad for her because, she left because she thought, the tag team, she was a tag team champ when her and Sasha Banks left. They thought they were being underused, it wasn't a good situation. And then she comes back and essentially it's the same thing. But I'm with you on Tiffany Stratton. I think she's really good. The Becky rub, I think worked with her, losing the title to her for the down in NXT. That's one of the rare moments that something like that actually goes in their favor. And we were kind of talking about, are they pushing her too soon? I think it's great. She's everything, like you said, the total package. And, I don't think they'll really have much for her at WrestleMania. We'll kind of see where they go with that. But man, her next year, I feel like it's Tiffy time for sure next year.
Yeah. And it's interesting because she was brought in at the same time Jade Cargill was. And so you kind of figure they were building up this big idea for Jade Cargill, and then Tiffany, they're like, all right, let's just see what happens. So she's kind of like the workhorse so far of the two, where Jade's like, let's save her for the moment. And you would figure that Jade would get all the benefit of that, and we'll see what happens with her. But Tiffany, They threw her into the elimination chamber as kind of the wild card. That was really good. We got really over with the crowd there, and was continued to be on this night on SmackDown. So I can't wait to see what they have for, like you said, not necessarily something as far as WrestleMania maybe right away. And you don't want the crowd to turn on Jade Cargill, but her and Cargill, could make a WrestleMania match that you'd be interested in pretty quickly. So we'll have to see what they do with her. A victory over Naomi lets you know she's getting the push. Coming up next on SmackDown was Bayley and Dakota Kai versus the Kabuki Warriors, of course, part of Damage Control. Kai ultimately, this was a story they've been setting up. Kai ultimately refuses the hot tag, turns on Bayley, and in Dakota Kai and the Kabuki Warriors beat up Bayley along with Io Sky, the champion, who was out there as well. I think this was pretty well. Rather. It was well executed, but very predictable.
Yeah.
And I thought that when you do that, I think instead of always jumping down from the tag in a useless tag team match, and it's not, I don't want to say useless, but it was like they didn't have I don't believe they had the belts on the line.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I rather some, if you're gonna get to the action, get to it mid-match. I mean, I'd rather like a turn where you get Dakota Kai hitting her finisher on Bayley out of nowhere, right? And then, okay, that would kind of be a bigger deal here. So I say it's well executed. I thought it could have been a little bit better, but that's what we have right now, and the odds are now even more against Bayley. Yeah,
and it's the right move, but as you said, I did not like it either. It's like a cheap way out almost, and Dakota, I
just felt kind of rushed.
Yeah, very rushed. And when they get to Monday night, it kind of makes sense because we mentioned it that English, the language barrier.
Yeah.
So Dakota Kai is now going to be, the one that talks for them, which is very weird for me because she's still very green. She's not a vet. And the funny thing is she's actually one of the older ones of the group. I didn't realize she's 35 years old already. So she's not, an up and comer there. That's always interesting to me, but she just doesn't have that factor. She's going to be like the side character of this, and all that. But yeah, I agree with you. They kind of just, Bailey's just gonna kind of be stunned there. Dakota's just kind of laughing it off, all that. It's good for the story rise, but like you said, it was very rushed. I wish they would have gone a different way with it. Maybe even waited a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Maybe even the night before WrestleMania or something, to really give it like that. But now it's just, and she kind of sticks out with the group, because she's, the three Kabuki Warrior. Well. Damage Control.
Warriors,
yeah, two of them. They're so confusing that they, they have two separate names for themselves right there. But
now that there's four of them, it makes a little more sense from faction to Kabuki Warriors plus Dakota Kai and Io Sky at least.
Yeah, that does make sense. But it'll be interesting here. On that, like I keep saying, story wise, great. Just man, the execution was just very sloppy. And I don't know if it was just how they did it. Just maybe how Dakota reacted to everything. I don't know. I didn't like that. I didn't like her and that's. Maybe that's good on her because, it was kind of getting under my skin how she was laughing and all that stuff. It's like, man, it's like that. You didn't pull that off right. You shouldn't be celebrating like that. So that was weird to me.
Well, and the other thing, and I know she's got a lot of credibility from NXT, but as far as the main roster, she's kind of the least credible Damage Control member to begin with. They gave the Kabuki Warriors the titles. Asuka, I mean, already had quite a bit of credibility. Bayley the same way. And then Io Sky, they gave the titles. So Kyrie, Dakota Kai, was just kind of an also ran, just like the back of the group. And now the fact that she joins Bayley, or turns on Bayley, it makes more bodies against her, but it's not like the most powerful one of the group left to begin with. So interesting, but I think they could have probably again, this whole storyline between Bayley and Io Sky is even all just so predictable that it was going to be the challenge was to just kind of build it on the way there. It's going to be an excellent match. We're all going to be interested in the long-term storytelling, long-term storytelling, but it was just so predictable on how we've gotten there. I am Jake Balkovin. Again, he is Augie Pena here on 93.7 The Ticket. This is Nuclear Heat, our weekly WWE Wrestling in Review show. When we get the chance to go live, we do. So we'll try to keep you in tune for that if you're trying to check it out every week. Otherwise, you can find our episodes on YouTube or on theticketfm.com. as we lead up to WrestleMania, which would, again, good time to join us if you have not or have been kind of, a lot of people get out of wrestling for a while and kind of forget it exists, and then you check back in. It's a good time to check back in if that is indeed what you're doing. We move on from that match on SmackDown to Braun Breaker and Zion Quinn. This was about as quick as matches as you have. Braun Breaker hit one spear, got the win. Not much to say here other than the obvious storytelling that Braun Breaker is a beast and is going to make quite an impact upon his real main roster, run. Don't know if it's going to happen before WrestleMania. I think you might see a lot of these type of matches, and so maybe he's kind of a post WrestleMania plan type of guy, and they're just feeding him right now.
Yeah, they got to be careful with it though, because as we talked about, you don't want to give him the too many squash matches. You want to start giving him some credible wins there. This was fine though. I mean, like you said, TV time is good.
Yep.
Any of it. Even though his match is a minute, one move, all that stuff. We know. We've
Good
seen it in the Royal Rumble. Yeah, we know from the Royal Rumble and things like that, he can put on matches. So they just can't. They can't wait too long. He's hot right now. You can't have him do like 5 more of these. Maybe 1 or 2. Get him through WrestleMania, and then we'll see.
And again, I've been saying it for even months now. Him against Gunther would have been incredible as far as if it was Lesnar, Gunther was the plan. Breaker could pretty much fight the same fight, but you might change what you want to do there. But that's what you want to do ultimately when you give up these long title reigns, and Roman's going to give it to Cody. It looks like we'll see. We've been told that before going into WrestleMania. It didn't happen last year, and that's not necessarily an up and comer, but it does kind of put Cody on a different stratosphere. And again, that's got to be the goal. Very quickly, Braun would be on a different stratosphere if he comes in and knocks off the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in Gunther, who's just been dominant in that title run. So that's something that they could do. Doesn't look like what they're going with, though. As we move on throughout the next match on SmackDown, a street fight. Who doesn't like a street fight between Carlito and Santos Escobar? Very hard-hitting match. Carlito almost got to bite his apple. Santos Escobar got it before. I always like they do that spot in there. Ultimately, everybody's getting involved from LWO and Legado del Fantasma, setting up Santos Escobar to have the edge. That is until, of course, the return of the great Rey Mysterio. His return too much for Santos Escobar and his group. The 619 finished into a spine buster from Carlito through a table is the ending of this match as Carlito gets the win over Santos Escobar. Great return. The crowd popped huge for Rey Mysterio. Rey's a top 5 guy for me of all time. I love Rey Mysterio coming out there. Does he have a WrestleMania match coming? If he does, it would probably be Santos Escobar. Would that be hot enough? Are they not? I mean, they just gave Carlito the win over Santos. Does it make sense? A lot of interesting stories here. We said it before. Probably leading up to a SmackDown before WrestleMania LWO Legado del Fantasma match. Any way that Rey boosted into a WrestleMania match?
No, because this is something they've been working on pretty much, since last year. So this is kind of the, I think they're just trying to see, what the temperature is of the feud. And unfortunately, with Rey being out for so long, it doesn't feel like a WrestleMania type of match. And Santos, to his credit, is a pretty decent heel. He's good in the ring, decent on the mic, all that stuff. And there is some story there, but just with all the other matches, they have the potential for WrestleMania. I love Rey too. His entrance, all that stuff. I sing it at home all the time. Just annoying my dogs and all that.
Every time it's 619, I notice it.
Yep, 100%. In the mask, all the different masks. You want him to be a part of WrestleMania, but just I don't think there's a spot for him, and you can't. I don't think Santos Escobar is ready to be a WrestleMania type of wrestler right now.
Yeah, fair enough. And like I was saying, just the booking, he's been beaten too much by LW for like the win at WrestleMania would be is that the final straw, but it's not like Rey's overcoming the odds. It would just be he happened to win that night, which is kind of what the 50-50 booking of LWO and Legado del Fantasma has been so far. We finished off the SmackDown with Randy Orton against Austin Theory. This set up from Austin Theory and Grayson Waller talking trash in the back. Randy noticed it, called out one of them for a match, and Grayson offers up Austin Theory once again, which he has done a few times. It kind of makes Austin Theory look pretty stupid.
Yeah.
But in any case, for some reason, KO is at ringside. He's interested in this feud for some reason. Doesn't like Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. We know that from the past. But this was an old finish the SmackDown with heels versus baby faces, and the baby faces not only get the win, but then they beat up the heels before the end of the show. Fine enough match. I mean, Randy Orton's always great. But you wonder if they have anything for him at WrestleMania. Austin Theory and Grayson Waller certainly wouldn't be it. And they're kind of stuck here, I think, probably to be Logan Paul's goons at some point, which is, I think, a good spot for them. Maybe that's how they get on WrestleMania. But I just wonder what do they have for Randy? Because right now it's tough to see who his opponent would be at WrestleMania. And if you don't bring him back, if you don't have a match for him, that's a waste.
Yeah, and you need Randy Orton on WrestleMania, and I don't know the direction they're going with. I talked about it. They could have gone with Logan Paul. I'm going for that United States Championship. I don't know. And you don't want to see him thrown into a match like this. That doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
And we're 2 months away from WrestleMania, a month.
Well, and I suppose it will be. It looks like it's going to be Logan Paul who hit him with the at Elimination Chamber with the brass knuckles. But Randy certainly doesn't need the U.S. title, so it's just kind of odd. It's just kind of odd.
I mean, they could be trying to give Logan that rub, which I don't think he needs because he's one of the most popular people. He's probably the most popular person in the WWE just from YouTube and all that from outside sources. And he's shown he can put on a great match. There's a reason he's a champion, so I guess that does make sense. On there, they're just not really doing all too much with it. They're not. Yeah, they did it in Elimination Chamber. He's fighting his goons, but then you add in KO, it's like, where is he being, it's messy right now. It's messy. And I think Randy Orton with, how long he was out, his return, I think we all expected something big for WrestleMania. And if he goes against Logan Paul, that is pretty good. I did talk about that'd be a pretty good match there, but it's just messy. There's no clear direction. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. It's interesting. Of course, Logan Paul, one of your concerns with him is that he couldn't probably be there every Friday. And I think this was an example of him not necessarily being there. And you have to find his opponent or the guys that he's having a feud with something to do. And that's where Grayson Waller and Austin Theory come in handy at this point. Again, probably not their ideal spot, but it's where they are right now, kind of as the chicken bleep heels, we'll say that. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break. Once again, this is Nuclear Heat here on 93.7 The Ticket, our weekly WWE Week in Review show. I'm Jake Bachman. He is our Nuclear Heat contributor, Augie Pena, and we will be back to talk about some Raw. Also, how about the first WWE Hall of Famer inductee announced last night on Raw 2? We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Coming up next year on 93.7 The Ticket.
Hello, this is Mary Pat Waite. I've had the privilege of working with Lincoln Families as their realtor for more than 31 years, and I'm so proud to be associated with MP Dodge Real Estate. For me, your transaction is unique in its own way. My experience allows me to bring you trusted care and a really great outcome. My NP Dodge family shares the same client focus.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
Ironhide Construction is hiring. They're looking for hardworking, self-motivated individuals who are team players. Ironhide Construction has openings for an experienced project manager, estimator, apprentice, skilled laborer, and erector or installer. They will train the right people and make sure you understand the position and requirements. At Ironhide Construction, it's own it, be honest, and do it right. Apply today and learn more about their other benefits at ironhideconstruction.com, where they're committed to you every step of the way.
Sandhills Global is hiring. With their fast-paced, growing culture, they have hundreds of new openings in sales, marketing, traveling support, software development, web design, and more. Full-time roles offer a 4.5-day work week, along with flexible internships in most areas. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Find your fit today at www.sandhills.jobs.
At Fairway Meat Market, your family. And as part of the family, they want to save you money in your meat and groceries. Now, through March 10th, enjoy USDA Choice T-bone steaks for $8.99 per pound, all natural St. Louis style ribs for $1.99 per pound, USDA Choice whole beef brisket for $3.99 per pound, and all the way to St. Patrick's Day, fresh Reuben bratwursts are back. That's all at Fairway Meat Market in the Rockledge Square Shopping Center, just south of 84th and Van Dorn.
Are you working in or looking to get into the electrical construction industry? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Plains Cover Crop is your one-stop seed shop. Call us now for spring and summer forages, CRP mixes, and fall cover crop blends. We do farm-specific consulting for practical and efficient seed blends to fit your geography and goals. With a very diverse inventory, we will tailor a blend just for you. We're also looking for contract growers, and we buy and sell rye. Find us online at plainscovercrop.com. Timeless agronomy practices paired with modern technology. East Highway 20 in Orchard and across Nebraska.
Be a memory for your grandchildren. Among Nebraska adults age 65 or older, 47% report current alcohol use. Drinking too much can cause harm to children, family members, and loved ones. By drinking less, you will still be around for your grandchildren. If you or a loved one is looking for help, find a treatment facility near you at findtreatment.gov. For immediate support, call, text, or chat 988.
Brought to you by Nebraska DHHS in partnership with SAMHSA.
Happy Hour.
Husker softball in all preseason polls. In the 4 polls, 13th, 15th, 17th, and 18th. USA Softball is part of that. Softball America is one of them as well. D1 Softball.
Top 20 as a team, and they have at least 2 players in every top 50, top 100 poll, with Jordy Ball being anywhere from second. Honestly, I think third was her lowest ranking in some of those. And Billy Andrews. Usually it's those 2. There was one that had Kate Kaneda.
Weekdays from 1 to 2 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bakoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Once again, I am Jake Bakoven, and this is Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. The big boy said it. I had to say it too, just to make us, just make me feel better, I suppose, about it. He is Augie Pena, our Nuclear Heat contributor, and we do this every week. We look at the WWE Week in Review. We just reviewed SmackDown, and now we will move on to Raw, of course, the 3-hour program of the 2. So a little bit more to talk about there sometimes. Sometimes takes us 2 segments. We'll see what we can do. We might have enough time to get through it all. Usually we take, we'll probably talk about Keitana Chance and Caden Carter, I think, tonight will be what we get caught on. No, probably not. WWE Raw opened last night with Cody Rhodes and Seth freaking Rollins opening up to, of course, respond to the Bloodline, who issued the challenge. And this was a good promo. I think they're doing a great job of having at least one side or the other on both shows. We'll see them collide now coming up on SmackDown on Friday. But basically this was just kind of repeat sort of stuff. Yeah. It was a chance for Seth Rollins to announce that he is officially ready and able to fight. He said he didn't want to say The Rock, didn't want to see the People's Champ. So he's calling him Diarrhea Dwayne, which is some lowbrow humor. Not necessarily my type, cheap heat type of stuff. I would say cheap heat, but it's not heat. It's getting over. Of course, the crowd started chanting diarrhea. Again, there are moments in wrestling when you don't necessarily want your friend to walk in, your friend that doesn't watch wrestling come in, and then you have to explain what's going on there. I thought that was one of those moments. Yeah. Not necessarily the promo overall, but what did you think about that specifically? Because I don't know. Again, it's easy to get the crowd going, but it's kind of like the big balls thing that Miz does. Yeah. It's just kind of like it's like teenage humor.
It was a very cringe moment, and it was probably one of my least favorite Seth Rollins promos in general. I just didn't think he delivered. I thought it was very forced. Diarrhea. Come on, that. Yeah. I am a Rock fan.
Didn't really make any sense. It's just like.
It's one of those, it's one of those times when you get hit with a comeback and you have no idea what to respond with. So you're like, and what about you? It's with like one of those moments. And it's like very childish, very, like you said, that's one of those, I tell my friends, listen to our podcast, listen to our show all the time. I'm like, maybe, Yeah, don't watch that part of the WWE there.
I think, and you might think that we're overdoing this because it is just sophomoric humor, and there's a lot of sophomoric humor, crowd
Yeah.
in wrestling that likes it, and so it's fine. It's just, for the bigger picture here is you're building up this huge collision.
Yeah.
You want it to be very serious, and this is in the Seth Rollins inclusion into all of it is a bit of a mystery, and I want to see, is there a payoff? Is there a reason? Because if he's just going to be ho-hum backup for Cody, I don't know if that's necessarily worth involving him in all of this altogether.
Although they dropped something at the end there. Did you see that? The finger.
That's right.
Because
Yes.
The Rock, The Rock, for you guys that know the bloodline, they put up the ones. So they put up their one finger. The Rock has kind of been putting up like an L shape. He's letting his thumb out there. And Seth kind of mocked that, kind of mentioned that. He put up the one and had had the L, the J type thing, and he stared at it, so that they're kind of sprinkling it in there, could
I did like that. Little Easter egg.
Could Seth, be in the line with the bloodline, on there, and he's mentioned the Shield, so it would be perfect if there was somewhat of a swerve there, John Moxley comes back, it's
now you're talking dirty to me.
hey, and that's what really brings us in is those little details they put in. I would say this segment wasn't like Cody is great on the mic, the reaction, all that was fine. Them talking was fine. As you said, I don't like how Seth essentially just admitted he has a match with Drew McIntyre to main event one of the WrestleMania nights for the World Heavyweight Championship. And Seth Rollins in this segment essentially said, he did say, my main priority is the bloodline, essentially saying, I don't care about my title match right now. And I don't like that because you're burying the World Heavyweight Championship, which they created to be on par with Roman Reigns' title. And now the guy holding it is in a feud with Roman Reigns while he's supposed to be trying to defend that. So I agree. It's unless there's a turn here, I don't like it.
Yeah. It's they definitely have buried Seth's title, and they've almost, while doing so, you wonder how much of this is in their mind and how much is just kind of week to week, because they've almost turned it now from like, okay, now let's make Drew, who is just like this sensible heel, like this evil guy that makes a lot of sense, and he does it once again with what they're going with now him basically saying that Seth isn't focusing enough on his title and putting enough of emphasis on his title. And that's kind of the overall complaint with putting Seth into this feud altogether. So they're kind of using what you could say is bad storytelling to turn it around and be part of the story.
Yeah. And, to me, the payoff, Drew has to beat Seth Rollins. Because if they do anything else, this doesn't make sense. They are building up Drew McIntyre, as you said. He is running away with this. His heel turn is phenomenal. His mic work, everything he's doing, he is giving it all for that title. And then, as you said, Seth, who's actually the champ, is just, he doesn't care about it right now. So you're right. It is good. It's just it's bad because WWE does this sometimes. Seth is a huge name still. They could keep that title on him, and then that just ruins everything. So to me, that move is McIntyre has to just go in and not demolish. It's going to be a good match, but then you think about it, there's still Damian Priest out there, so it's like you don't know what they're going to do. So I think, to me, McIntyre winning, because he's taking this serious, has to be the payoff. But man, it's the WWE. They make you want to pull your hair out, sometimes there too.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you are going to have him involved in all this stuff too, it'd be a much better if you kind of brought him back to his roots, whether that be from the Shield, the Kingslayer run was, even when he's with the Authority. I understand he's a face now, but something kind of rooting him back to that, and maybe they'll do that on WrestleMania night. Maybe maybe that's kind of the big edge and the big reason to have him all included in this. But it just, I get that the character is over, but the bright colors and the great fancy outfit and just laughing hysterically about this and that, like the song has got him over. I don't know if the character necessarily has.
Yeah, he's like the Joker, right? Like I think that's somewhat, who he kind of goes off of. And another thing I wanted to kind of just put out there is if this is a payoff, because if you go back, it kind of all starts on that in Las Vegas when they do the whole WrestleMania kickoff show.
Yeah.
Seth is kind of still trying to be buddy with Roman. Roman's the one that throws the insults and starts calling him, like the stepchild, that secondary title nobody cares of. So to me, it wouldn't make sense if I just don't know. That's where it's like as someone like us, we really pay attention to those details. It just wouldn't make sense for a turn to happen there, especially after Roman's kind of been treating him like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I agree with you. I tell you, I can't. Seth Rollins' outfits, just kind of what he says, how he acts is just not. I don't like it. I don't. But his song is really over. And when he's medically cleared, he's great in the ring. He is one of the best performers.
Yeah.
And he is a workhorse. That's what got him injured there. But man, I just think I'm kind of just ready for this to I really just want WrestleMania. I'm being impatient. Sorry. I shouldn't do that. We got to enjoy the moment, because before we know it, WrestleMania season is going to be over and we're going to be like, wow, that went by fast. So just got to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, let's enjoy the ride and see where it goes. A lot of different ways that every different fan would fantasy book a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's why a show like this is kind of fun. Brian T texts in, I'm still old school and regularly wear my NWO shirts. The newer stuff doesn't catch me up in as quite as well. Fair enough. I mean, that was the peak time of wrestling. It's hard to convince or talk to somebody, because I was trying to say it the other day, is that the stars of wrestling in that day, you could go to school and people would know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not sure just in the general public, if even the biggest star like a Roman Reigns, if you say his name, people know what you're talking about. That's why The Rock and Logan Paul and some of these big names that come in draw such big crowds and a lot of reaction coming into Raw. But these days there's YouTube streamers. There's just so much competition that your WWE fans know of their top stars, but people outside of wrestling don't know who Gunther is.
Yeah, no, and like the NWO days and the the 90s and all that. There was times where I don't know about you, but I pretty much watched whatever I wanted to. But even my mom would be like, "What are you watching?" Because the blood and all that stuff they used to do. It was. They were allowed to get away with more. Now they've gone into kind of that PG-13 era. I think that's kind of made it a little bit more cartoony for the kids, which, I still watch cartoons and stuff. So I don't see what's wrong with it. But, that I think that kind of drew a lot of people away, when they kind of went to that. And some people blame John Cena because he was kind of the face of it all. I don't. I think he did amazing, for what he had. But, yeah, I still, find myself on YouTube watching some of those older matches from the 90s, Mankind being thrown off of that Hell in a Cell by The Undertaker, the thumbtacks, all that stuff. It was a great time, Brian. So, I'm glad you still have that shirt there too. So.
Well, and back then too, just the characters. You mentioned the Mankinds, the Kanes, the Undertakers, the Stings.
Mm-hmm.
You just do face paint and have all these different characters. And nowadays it's hard to Ivar. It's what is that Viking doing on his off day? Is he still a Viking? Does he just go around and eat turkey legs all day? Or, does he put a suit on? Is he not a Viking?
And the funny thing is, real quick, since we talked about Sting at the beginning, one of my favorite things is Sting, wore the face paint and all that stuff. My favorite meme that still goes around is when I say I'm going to change, but I don't, because Sting would always come in and wear a Sting mask.
That's
and you're
right.
like, who is it?
And
It's Sting, it's Sting. So that, sorry, I just had to bring that up because I just brought in that just brings so much joy to me to watch those. It's the funniest thing.
Let's go move on to the next match in WWE Raw last night. Dominic Mysterio against Gunther. If this was placed on the card, I'm extremely interested in this. But even more interesting than just this match in particular, Raw in general was a night of heel versus heel and face versus face kind of interactions. Very different. And you wonder, with kind of thinking about that Attitude Era where there was sometimes less obvious heel, part of the Stone Cold's charm was that he wasn't, your clean baby face heel. He's kind of a middle ground guy. And The Rock, these guys could all kind of be good or bad guys depending on the night. You wonder, with Vince now out of the picture, if they're going to start going back toward that. I don't know. But this Raw kind of seemed that way, where Dominic Mysterio gets so booed, and Gunther is typically one of the most booed and disliked and mean just characters to the crowd. Yet they kind of had to start cheering for him because they didn't have a choice, because they all hate Dominic Mysterio. They kind of teased this as maybe, to me, like I said before, I would have capitalized on the heat that Mysterio gets. Try to build his credibility a little bit going into WrestleMania, and had this been the event, the main event for Gunther, I should say, for the Intercontinental title, because once again, Dominic Mysterio could gain a level by beating Gunther, whereas not everybody necessarily will, like Sami Zayn, and we'll get to it. They've got a Gauntlet IC title match coming up with all these different guys. There's certain guys, it's like, if Sami Zayn beats Gunther, it's kind of, it gives him something for a second, but he already had his thing last year, and now you're directionless with him. So, I just don't know. I don't feel like that's the way to go. They ultimately had a pretty good match. They told the story of Dominic Mysterio trying to get a chop fest with Gunther, which is not the way to probably go if you're the smaller man. Despite a very game Dominic Mysterio, he even got out of some of the pinfalls that I thought he was going to disappear in. Gunther ultimately gets the win. What are your kind of thoughts on how they went through this? And now they're setting up, I might as well say it because it's included in all this, is they're setting up the Gauntlet IC title between Sami Zayn, Shinsuke, JD McDonough, who is now in charge from the Judgment Day in taking down Gunther. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's what they have. Bronson Reed, Ricochet, and Chad Gable of the Alpha Academy, who's not just doing it for the title, he's doing it for his daughter. So you've got kind of all that there. Again, I said this about Dominic Mysterio in Elimination Chamber. I'll say it about this Gauntlet IC title. Even if he didn't win, I think you'd be more interested with him in the picture than even JD McDonough here.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And he's got that heat, that nuclear heat. Legit, you can't hear him talk when he's out there. And I thought this match was great. It was hilarious because one, Gunther was just being an absolute bully on Dominic. He was chopping, he was doing everything. And I think even the announcers were like, he's just bullying him at this moment. There's a time in this match where Gunther had the pin and didn't. And he got up off the 2 count because he wanted to keep punishing him. So I thought this was great. And even with Dominic essentially getting beat the way he got beat last night, I still would have been like, oh, redemption, like you could have him go and still beat Gunther, and it would just make it that much better because he got destroyed by him, in a one-on-one on there. And man, this one broke me a little bit because I wanted it to be Dominic, and he's not even included in the 6-man match. He's not there. And funny thing, it comes a little bit later, but when all these men are talking to Adam Pearce to say why they should be in there, did you notice what they did to JD McDonough? What they did in there? So it's his time to talk. He's like, this is why I'm going to do it. It goes to black. They cut him off. Like 100%. They just give him that treatment to just show you. It was great. It was hilarious. Legit, guys. They just cut him off. It goes to black. It goes to commercial.
I do remember that now.
On there. But man, Dominic Mysterio, he's great in the ring. He's really showing, he's working hard. He's over. He's over in the right way, whereas people love to boo him. And man, if he doesn't have something in WrestleMania other than kind of being a sidekick, I think that's a big waste because he gets one of the biggest reactions. And yes, it's boos, but that's what you want. In the WWE, any reaction is great. You don't want that dead silence, which, JD McDonough unfortunately kind of gets. And he seems to be the guy that, they're pushing in there, which is a little disappointing to me. Maybe Dominic, finds his way back in here, but that was a great match. It was fun. It was a lot of fun to watch that. So, and I'm not even a Dominic Mysterio, fan. So
yeah, I am, and I think they probably got some sort of a involvement ready for him with Rhea Ripley that they're probably not going to pull him away from. So it was a fun match, and at least we had it.
Yeah, that's true.
I wanted to see it eventually. At least we got it. All right, let's take a quick break here. Again, this is Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. Real quick break. We'll come back. We'll finish up Raw, and then we'll be back next week. So real quick break, and we'll finish up Raw coming up next year on Nuclear Heat.
Bagels & Joe is the perfect place for breakfast or lunch in March. Try their pesto cream cheese on any breakfast sandwich. For lunch, try the salmon panini with provolone, sesame oil, and tomatoes on a ciabatta roll with bagel chips. Perfect for Lent. 4 locations in Lincoln and 1 in Seward. Bagels & Joe.
My dream was to work in commercial banking, but it required a college degree and I didn't have one. I found out that Doane had classes for adult learners on the Lincoln campus and online. So I earned my bachelor's degree, and 5 months later, I landed my dream job. I decided to continue my education, and now I'm working on my MBA at Doane. For me, the Doane experience has been life-changing.
Plains Cover Crop is your one-stop seed shop. Call us now for spring and summer forages, CRP mixes, and fall cover crop blends. We do farm-specific consulting for practical and efficient seed blends to fit your geography and goals. With a very diverse inventory, we will tailor a blend just for you. We're also looking for contract growers, and we buy and sell rye. Find us online at plainscovercrop.com. Timeless agronomy practices paired with modern technology. East Highway 20 in Orchard and across Nebraska.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bakoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back here on our WWE Week in Review show. Only got a few minutes left. We're just about a couple matches into Raw, so we'll pick up where we left off to review. And before we get you out of here and ready to roll to our next program here on 93.7 The Ticket, we left off with probably the popcorn match of the night, but at least some sort of connection to what's coming down the line for Damage Control. Katana Chance and Caden Carter get their opportunity against Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. Damage Control comes out along, all four of them now come out and kind of block the viewing, I suppose, of Michael Cole and the commentary team over there. Ultimately, this is how you think it would go. Stark and Baszler get the win, the confrontation with Damage Control, and they are setting up another heel versus heel match, this time for the titles.
Yeah, and I was a little surprised because I thought Katana Chance and what's her name? Her Kaden, her partner. I thought they put on a good match. I thought they were deserving of the win. I did not like how Zoe won that. It was a roll up. But Damage Control, they have to set that up there. So I think we know who they're facing for WrestleMania, and I think it'll be good. Because Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler are credible. I think they can pretty much beat up anybody. So I think it'll be a good match there.
Yeah, I'm interested in it, and I do. And myself, I kind of cheer for the heels. So the heel on heel matchup, I'm looking forward to. Then we had Becky Lynch and Nia Jax. They had a short video package, kind of retelling the storyline here, as these are bitter rivals. Ultimately, have Liv Morgan interfere on behalf of Becky Lynch, allowing her to get the win. This is kind of the same thing that happened with Becky getting into the matchup last week in starting to attack Nia Jax. So a little bit of payback and Liv Morgan, and now Becky and Liv were talking in the back, and they set up a match for next week, a face versus face matchup.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, your girl Nia Jax had like 4 different botches in this match. Did you see that the drop kick Becky hit that didn't even connect, but somehow Nia Jax fell through there? And oh my goodness, how about the Samoan drop kick that she did from there? I thought Becky was about to get decapitated from that thing. I was actually entertained with this. I thought it was fun. I like Liv Morgan. I like, I don't like Nia Jax, but I thought, the botches made it pretty funny there on there. So it'll be interesting next Monday when they fight, because I know they have a pretty big following, the two of them. So I'm still curious to see what they're gonna do there.
Yeah. So, especially when it leads to, if we all know where Becky Lynch is at for WrestleMania. Is there any plan for Nia Jax and Liv Morgan on the Showcase of the Immortals? We'll have to wait and see. Then we have Andrade fully equipped with his mask. He looks pretty cool in his return from AEW. Take down Apollo Crews, which who knew he was still around?
I forgot.
This is a pretty quick squash match too. So no favors to Apollo Crews. I know he's been kicking it around on NXT, but this is all to highlight in Andrade, who has been seen routinely speaking Spanish, so I don't know what he's saying, but talking to Dominic Mysterio in the back. Would you like him eventually joining the Judgment Day?
I think that'd be cool. I think that would be good, because right now, Andrade had a pretty hype return at the Royal Rumble too, and all that. And I know he's a very good wrestler, has a big following. So, hey, with everything that might happen at WrestleMania, you don't know what's going to happen there. They add him. Judgment Day is pretty solid.
Yeah, and I've heard too that ideas from other wrestling podcasters and media saying that the Judgment Day they feel kind of stale, feel like they wanted them to break up by now. I disagree, but I think what you could do, and you want to be careful with it, because eventually we get like the 8th version of NWO and it's just it's not what it once was. But I think you could start to take members out, bring guys in for the next year. I mean, I think the faction is over so much that I don't think you want to break it up and then just build a new factions and try to get something else going. I think it's credible enough that, maybe at some point they turn on Priest, or you turn Priest babyface or something like that. And then you need Andrade or somebody else to come in and take his spot on Judgment Day. I think that would be a good idea. We'll see where they go creatively down the line. Judgment Day, for what it's worth, they did get their next matchup, defeating Imperium in a very hard-hitting matchup. Judgment Day basically had to win. This was another, both tag teams were coming in, another heel versus heel matchup for one, but another incident where it's almost a must-watch battle, because both teams, they've been pushing lately. Judgment Day, the title holders, they get the win. I thought they might go with Imperium to set up a championship match, but ultimately Judgment Day gets the win. Again, I don't know if this feels a little quick to take off some of the steam for Imperium. Just got with their long feud that they eventually won over one of the greatest tag teams of all time, the New Day. Was that all for this Raw, matchup at 9:00?
Well, it's weird because we thought this would be the WrestleMania matchup. We thought, Imperium versus Judgment Day, and I think that'd be amazing. And that's still what they look like they might be doing. But yeah, it's kind of weird, to give us kind of a sample. It was a good match, a little bit of a teaser. So we'll have to see there. I still think this will be the WrestleMania match for Finn Balor and Damian Priest there. But we'll see. We'll see where they decide to go with that.
Yeah, and this their WWE 2K ratings did not do Imperium any favor because both of them are ranked like 70, 71. So that didn't do them any favors. So we don't have much time left, so we better go fairly quickly. Sami Zayn gets another win. They've been telling the story of him basically on a losing streak. Now he's on a winning streak, having beaten Ivar. Once again, the Viking. Ivar can always put on a good match, but there's a ceiling to his character. There's a ceiling to what he does. So Sami Zayn definitely the right one to get over here. Anything to add to that?
Nope.
No.
Nope, not at all.
My only question is from there, is Sami Zayn enough for you? Oh, excuse me. I guess we'll hit that in a second because we'll save us 30 seconds. Is Sami Zayn enough for you for if he wins this Intercontinental title match? Because as you run it down again, the gauntlet match to face Gunther at WrestleMania is Sami Zayn, Shinsuke, JD McDonough, Bronson Reed, Ricochet, and Chad Gable. I think out of the 6, only Sami Zayn and Chad Gable make any sense whatsoever for a WrestleMania match. Is Zayn enough for you, or would you go Gable?
No, I'd go Gable 100%. He's gotta do it for his daughter. He's got to do it for his daughter.
Right, he does.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Sami Zayn, his star is just down. So no, there's no way.
Yeah, so that'll at least be interesting to see which of those two win. We finished up with Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre. I'll let you explain what happened here because I get confused.
So what ended up happening here, great match was happening. Then all of a sudden Solo Sikoa comes out very slowly. Looks like he's going to attack. Cody Rhodes come in for the save. So they start fighting. And then Jimmy comes in. So Jay's distracted. Jay turns around, takes a Claymore kick from Drew McIntyre for the 1-2-3. Drew McIntyre walks away. And then you got Jimmy coming in with the chair to attack his brother Jay. And then you get Seth freaking Rollins, very interesting, coming in for the save. And he runs right past Drew McIntyre at the entrance. And Drew McIntyre's kind of like, nah, that's not happening. So Seth comes in for the save, gets Jimmy away, turns around, takes a Claymore from Drew. And then Drew's like, you're disrespecting me. You're disrespecting the title, not even acknowledging, our match and stuff like that. I thought it was good storytelling there at the end. And yeah, that's how Raw ended there.
Yeah, so we'll see what they kind of do as far as I think that set up well. I had you do it because there's too many names, too many things going on right there, and we were on a time restriction there. So thank you for going through that. It's harder for me to just slam through when there's like 5 different guys involved in it. But ultimately, just kind of interesting. I think Jay, they haven't given him enough of a reaction to the Jimmy beatdown.
Yeah,
I think that they should be adding to that feud. They're kind of doing it. That should be on fire. And then you've got Damian Priest with Rollins like closing out Raw, dead in the middle of the ring, apparently not caring because hopefully at some point he doesn't cash in on Gunther.
He's got that cash in.
Good, right? Know? Yeah, you would think that he would for weeks on Raw. That was the only thing they'd highlight every week. So a little bit of inconsistency there, but we'll see. All in a good week of wrestling. We reviewed it. Now we'll review it next week here on our WWE Week in Review show, Nuclear Heat. We'll see you guys next week.
Alcohol has strained our relationship. Drinking too much can cause harm to friends, family members, and loved ones. By drinking less, we will save our relationship. If you or a loved one is looking for help, find a treatment facility near you at findtreatment.gov. For immediate support, call, text, or chat 988.
Brought to you by Nebraska.